My name is Scott Mahurin. I'm the director of Florida Preborn Rescue, which is a pro-life nonprofit organization based here in Tampa Bay. And so what I'm doing is I'm going around to different churches and organizations in the area, talking about my ministry, what I do, and why I do it. And so Kel was good enough to invite me to come down and teach you guys about what Christ-centered sidewalk counseling is and what it isn't. Most people, when they think about pro-life abortion ministry, they think about maybe some of the bad things, some of the misconceptions of people yelling and screaming and all that. And so what we're going to do today is sort of talk about how to do this in a Christ-centered way with some humility. So I have a handout on that you've got, and that's actually my particular facility that I go to the most. I do go to Sarasota sometimes as well. I'll give you my schedule later. But basically, standing on the sidewalk in front of an abortion facility, that's a fairly old picture, but and waiting for the women to go inside to talk to them about their babies and about life. There's two verses that I think are very poignant and important for us to remember in Scripture, and they're on the first page there. Proverbs 24 says, "Deliver those who are drawn toward death, and hold back those stumbling to slaughter. If you say, 'Surely we did not know this,' does not he who weigh the hearts consider it? He who keeps your soul, does he not know it? And will he not render it to each man according to his deeds?" So that's Proverbs 24, which is a command in Scripture. That's a command that we're to stand for those, to deliver those who are being stumbling to death, whatever that might be, whether that's in addiction, whether that's in any kind of sinful behavior that ultimately will lead to destruction. We're called to deliver them and to help rescue them. Then in 1 Samuel, the story of Jonathan and his armor bearer, I just love the phrasing of this when they're about to have a conflict with the Philistines. Jonathan said to the young man who bore his armor, "Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us." There's another, "For nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few." In the NIV translation of that verse, it says, "Perhaps the Lord will work for us." And that's part of the ministry of sidewalk ministry. We don't know if we're going to save a child's life. We don't know what's going to happen. Perhaps the Lord will work. We know that he is working and does work, and that's why we're all here, is the work, what God has done in our own lives. So over to page 2. This is sort of my commercial for my ministry. We do I started this nonprofit in 2012. We became a 501c3 in 2014. And so we do 4 things. We proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ to women and men considering abortion. We rescue the preborn from discrimination and destruction. There's that verse again. We equip the church to demonstrate Christ's love and compassion through sidewalk counseling. That's what this is. And then we reach out with the love of Christ to the abortion industry. Since 2012, we've offered help to over 1,300 women, and we've had 21 confirmed saves. There's more saves that we haven't heard of because we just don't know, but those are the ones that we talk to, hear from, stay in touch with. Not all of them that we stay in touch with. We'll talk more about that. But and I do, Rebecca, remind me to show the picture of baby K, because that's a good one. I don't want to have it on the screen, but I'll show you guys the picture on my phone of a baby we rescued down here. So whenever someone says, is this effective? Just remember the picture I'm about to show you, and you'll say, yes, it is effective. And shame on you for asking. No, just joking. So I'm currently raising financial support to become a fully funded faith-filled sidewalk counselor. Our support has ebbed and flowed, as you can imagine, through COVID and different things happening. I just heard from one of our big, kind of our heavy hitters who has his own business, who's in the medical profession, who's having a really hard time with his business. So he's kind of scaling back his support of our ministry. If you feel led to financially support us, we do have some room for you. And if you would like to have me come speak to a Bible study, women's group, men's group, whatever, I'd love to do that as well. So that's because we are raising support, and if you would consider that, great. So that's the commercial part. So anyway, so just I want to give a little introduction. Most of this, if you're in a solid Christian church, solid evangelical church, which you are, so good job. You probably know a lot of this, but I want to just sort of give a broad view before I get into it, to give you some statistics and some reasons why we're doing what we're doing. In 1973, the Supreme Court made abortion legal in all 50 states. Since then, the numbers are between 64 and 66 million babies that have been lost to abortion in the United States. 1 out of every 4 women in the United States between the ages of 18 and 40 have had at least 1 abortion. Those, as staggering as that is, it's actually going down. The numbers are actually going down. And the numbers are huge, but there's literally very little difference between inside the church and outside. We talk to women all the time who say, "Oh, I'm a Christian. I go to this church. They'll quote scripture to you. They'll quote, 'Don't judge,' or they'll say, 'I asked Jesus into my heart when I was 7, so whatever.'" So people who identify as Christians and people who don't, the numbers are the same in the abortion world. We see cars pull in God we trust, Jesus fish, cross. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So this is primarily a spiritual issue. It's not just political or it's a spiritual issue. The church has to get involved. Christians have to be the ones leading the way. The reasoning is that the Bible tells us that God is the creator of humans, male and female, made in his image, Genesis 1. Further, we know the human life begins at conception. The moment you were created, you were a separate and unique person from your mother and father. Whenever I speak on a college campus, I always say, this isn't news to you. As soon as you are aware of yourself, sometimes when you get to college, you go, am I really this person's kid? How did I get? My parents are so strange. I'm like, well, the reason is you are a separate and unique person from your parents. So if you met my parents, they'd be like, yeah, he's separate and unique. Separate and unique. So that's not news to us. And so the minute the sperm and the egg unite, there is you're a separate, unique individual. All the DNA you have is you're the same exact DNA structure as when you were first conceived. You are a human being. And so the willful, intentional destruction of human beings is murder. It's unjust. That's why Christians care about abortion. And we make up a lot of the pro-life voter base in the United States. Most Christians vote for pro-life candidates as the main reason why they vote, most of the time. Most evangelicals vote for pro-life candidates because that's the main and most important issue. And that's good, but most of the time, most Christians leave their convictions about abortion at the voting booth. And sometimes this is out of necessity. If you live in an area where it's a rural area, there's not a lot of abortion anywhere. I'm from a state that didn't, I'm from northern Idaho originally, and the closest abortion facility to my town was probably 3 hours away. So, I mean, if Spokane, Washington would be the closest to where I'm from. So if you're from a small area, it's not in your neighborhood or backyard. But in Florida, it's not like that. In Florida, we have a major abortion issue. And so basically, if every church in Manatee and Sarasota sent at least one Christian to the abortion facilities in order to minister, each abortion provider would be surrounded every day with 200 Bible-believing Christians. So my mission, my dream, is to take all the pro-life churches, all the people who believe in life, and have them send people, whether it's me or someone else, to those places, surround them in prayer, surround them in love, surround them with hope, and shut them down. That's my hope, to say we're going to vote for pro-life people. We should. We're going to advocate for it. We're going to talk about adoption. We're going to talk about abstinence and premarital sex and all those things. We're going to do it from every angle we can, but we're also going to go to these places, surround them, and shut them down, Lord willing. So we go there, we go to the sidewalk because we want, not just because we want the numbers to go down, we want them to we want to minister to women because of the way we've been ministered to. So the reason I named my ministry Florida Preborn Rescue is because Jesus rescued me. He rescued you. So Jesus is in the business of rescuing people from their sin and redeeming people. And so we now, with that, we should be going out with and evangelizing. We should be going out and speaking in our culture. We should be going out and rescuing the weakest among us. The weakest among us are the preborn in our culture who have no voice, who have no legal right to even exist. And so we should be doing that because God rescued us. So that's my intro. And if at any point you want to have a question or anything, just raise your hand and I will call on you, or just speak up because we got a small crowd. That's okay. Okay, so the necessity for sidewalk counseling in Tampa Bay. All Christians agree that babies are God's most innocent and helpless creatures. Babies are aborted every day in the Tampa Bay area. So by Tampa Bay area, I say Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota. If I added Polk in there, I don't know if Polk considers themselves Tampa Bay or Orlando. I have to talk to them and see. But there's 13 clinics, facilities in Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota. There are 0 in Manatee, but there are 2 in Sarasota, and that's what I'll primarily be talking about. No matter where you live in these 4 counties, you're never more than 25 minutes from an abortion facility. So Hillsborough has 6, Tampa has 6 facilities, St. Pete, Clearwater has 5. Really 4, because one of them is only, the Planned Parenthood in St. Pete is only really doing, this is really, really horrible too, but they're mostly just doing like hormone stuff for transgender stuff. They don't really do the babies, but they're like St. Pete's sort of the hub for transgender hormone therapy, all that kind of stuff, which again, it's all related to the abusing of the image of God and what God has created and distorting it and just trying to destroy it. So 5 in St. Pete, Clearwater, 6 in Tampa, 2 in Sarasota. And then you have to get Fort Myers, Naples, and then after that it's Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Miami, Dade County on its own has, I think, 18 facilities. It's just everywhere. And many of them, my wife and I were over there in April, many of them are like walk up, like easy access to these places, easy for Christians to get to, but we never saw any, which got me thinking about getting over there and trying to promote this too. So we got this disconnect, number 3 at the top of page 4, the first section. We have this disconnect. There's a large amount of evangelical Christians, Roman Catholics in Florida. We also have the 3rd largest number of abortions in the country. So California and New York have more, but we're 3rd. There are 57 facilities in the entire state. This has gone down. When I first started in 2012, I think there were like 75. So some have closed completely, some have consolidated, some have moved, but there's only 57 officially there. It's about 9 or 10% of all abortions in the U.S. take place in Florida. There were 75,000 in Florida in 2019, around 6,000 in Tampa Bay. And these numbers are actually going down. About 10 years ago, it was about 100,000 and about 10,000 in Tampa Bay. So the numbers are going down. A few reasons for that, which we can get to later if you want. But basically, there's just people are not aborting their children as much, and they might be going to chemical abortions. That's a big deal. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's hard to sometimes measure the numbers. So we agree, number 4, God has called us to advance his cause for justice, to rescue those being led away to the slaughter. So if we're going to talk about justice or social justice in the church, that's a big thing, a big call for justice everywhere. Last year, everything was about justice, and we believe in justice because we're Christians. So my thing with Christian groups and churches is I say, I believe in justice, God believes in justice. Let's start with the people who have 0 rights in our culture. Let's start with them. And I know who they are. They're the preborn babies of the United States. They have no legal right to exist. So if you want to talk about anything else, let's start with the root of it. And there's plenty of injustice and there's plenty of sin in our culture, but let's start with the big one. So the preborn is a mission field. Abortion is legal in our state. You can Google the word abortion in Sarasota and be directed to the clinic nearest you, and for $460, they will kill that child. Depending on the size of the child and how far along the number might go up. Because this is not done in secret, we know where the clinics are located. We know where the clinics are located. We can be there. So this isn't. You can call any of these clinics and say, "I'd like to bring my daughter, my granddaughter in for an abortion," and they'll talk to you like it's Jiffy Lube. What time do you want to come in? How far along is she? Boom, boom. No, it's just no one says a word. No one, we do that to find out when the procedures are, when the doctors come and all that. And they'll tell you. I mean, they don't really answer my number. They know me, but they don't. I have people. So you got to be a little bit shrewd. Okay, so this is a mission field. Again, we know who needs to hear the gospel. Well, all of us. Well, but this is a really desperate person, really desperate situation, really many times desperate financially, oftentimes just desperate spiritually, oftentimes just very proud of, prideful, not wanting their life to change, not wanting to be able to sacrifice for this child, not wanting, it's interrupting their life. They don't want to have to give this up. They don't want to have to give up certain parts of their life, the sacrifice that comes with having a child. So they need the gospel. They need the gospel. We also need to be the voice of the preborn, but a voice of love and compassion too. So it's both. So I've met people who are kind of all about the children, all about the babies, and they advocate for the babies, and that's awesome. But I think we can also say that we're there to advocate for the moms and the dads, and say to them, it's not just that the baby is dying and being torn apart by abortion, but that the women and men that are involved in it need to hear the gospel. They need to hear that they need to repent. They need to hear they need to trust in Christ. They need to hear that they can get help. All those things at once. So we can do both. And so there's some that focus on the women and men and trying to talk to them. That's great. There's others who are there to just advocate for the baby. So when people say to us, well, why don't you protest? People came up and we were at a rally one time and somebody came up and said, why don't you protest child abusers? And the answer is, well, I can't look up child abusers in the yellow pages and find where they are, but I can find an abortion clinic. I can't protest all the where's the racists? Well, there's a building filled with all the racists. Well, if there were, I'd protest it. Okay. If there's a building where all the sexual predators were, I'd protest that too. If you could just look it up, but I don't know where they are. But I do know where the abortion clinic is. So I'm gonna start there. So that's a part of our mentality about that. Okay, page 5. We got a little picture there of the one that I'm really focusing on, because my ministry focuses on going where people aren't. Because if a clinic has people in front of it, and they're consistent, then I sort of leave that place alone because they've got something going. But if I find a clinic in our area that doesn't have much happening, that's where I'm going to focus on, because I feel like the Lord wants me to be sort of a pioneer in that sense, and then find Christians, gather them, and turn them loose on it. So, but before we get to that, the top part about how we're supposed to be. So when I tell people I'm a sidewalk counselor, that I'm a pro-life full-time sidewalk counselor, I can sense in their face, this person is strange, this person is scary, this person is not, and it doesn't help that I look strange and I look scary. That doesn't help either. I can't help it though. But I've talked to pastors and I can almost sense the fear in their eyes when I tell them what I do. Because a lot of times, the reason for that is that a lot of times people go in, and a lot of the passionate pro-life people sometimes can really turn people off to, if a pastor has a prayer meeting or is leading a service, and the guy in the back only wants to talk about babies, well, the pastor's thinking, I'm with you, but I have to preach the word. I have to counsel. I have to help with this. I have to visit this person in the hospital. There's a life of the church that has more to do than just focus on this one thing. So one of the things I try to do, and I don't do it perfectly, but I try to sort of rescue the demeanor of sidewalk counselors, that we're not all crazy, we're not all jerks. And so the three scriptures that I really lay in front of you are Romans 13, 14. Let us walk properly as in the day, not in revelry and drunkenness, not in lewdness and lust, not in strife and envy. But put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to fulfill its lusts. But the fruit of Galatians 5, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. And then Philippians 2, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but for the interests of others. So Romans 13, I'm commanded not to put on the lusts of the flesh. And I know that I'm the only one in this room that struggles with the lust of the flesh, but I'll fill you in since you guys don't struggle with it. What it sometimes can mean is anger. What it sometimes can mean is frustration. What it sometimes can mean is sarcasm, bitterness. Two of my three kids are here, and thank you that you're not agreeing with that publicly. Thank you for that. You'll receive a reward later. But the idea is, if I'm angry and upset at a woman, if a woman flips me off and screams at me, if a man threatens me and I'm returning evil for evil, well, I've just lost my witness with them. So we were just talking in the car about a story that a couple years ago we were at a Planned Parenthood protest. Whenever Planned Parenthood does something publicly, we try to go and crash it and with pro-life signs just to give people a sense of, because I don't think they should be able to just go out in public and do that without people having a contrary point. And my wife got assaulted, didn't press charges, but got assaulted, and we were just talking about how to respond biblically, and she did a good job. When you handle that. So Galatians 5 also, we're crucifying the flesh with its passions and desires. Galatians 3, no provision for the flesh. You're going to rise up, you're going to be angry, you're going to be frustrated, but don't respond in anger. And then let your own interests go away. Philippians 2, look out for the interests of others. So if I were in that situation, and I've never been in that situation, I've never paid for an abortion, I've never been involved in it. Like I said, I grew up in a place where that just, you didn't hear about it, it wasn't around. So, but if I was in that situation, I was going into the abortion facility, what would I want from that person? I'd probably want someone to just say, I'm here to help you, I'm here, whatever. I wouldn't want to be yelled at, I wouldn't want to be necessarily preached to, but that's helpful. So that's how we should be. So the lay of the land. So this is South Tamiami Trail. This is a medical building. So the street in front, like closest to the bottom of the picture, is Grove Street. And the left side there is South Tamiami. So this is about a mile south of Sarasota Memorial Hospital. It's a nice neighborhood. Most clinics aren't in good neighborhoods. That kind of surprised me. And the corner, if you look at the building, the bottom floor, left-hand side is where they have the facilities. So there's two windows there. There's two doors on the one side. That's where the abortions happen. And they're there Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays at 10. I'm sorry, I'm doing that wrong. No, that's right. Wednesdays at 10, and then Fridays at 8:30. And so I'll just do this real quick. On the right-hand side of that picture, there's a parking lot, and that's the only parking lot to the building. And so we either stand at that parking lot, or we stand off of Grove, or we stand on Tamiami Trail, because that way, if there's two people, you have a huge effect because you're surrounding They have to walk past you to go into the building, and then when they're underneath, going into the actual office, they have to hear you twice. So if there's two people, I have one person saying one thing, the other person saying the same thing, and it's much more effective. So with that in mind, we'll look over to page 6, which is sort of the the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, so first things first, talk to God before you talk to people. I have to remember this because I can get distracted and I'm late for my appointment, I'm late for this, I'll just go, and then I have to really remember this. So we're going to pray, we're going to bring our Bible, we're going to pray that we can be a witness, that we're in tune with the Holy Spirit, that we're not going to just respond. This is primarily a spiritual issue. So when you see angry people, when you see angry people, when they're obscene, when they're vulgar, when they yell at you, they call you names, I mean, to see past that, it hurts, it's not nice, but when you see past it to the spiritual issue, that's what you're really going for. You're really saying, okay, this person is scared, this person is angry, this person is lost. And so my ministry to them is to try to help them in this moment and not respond. So if someone calls me, fat idiot, well, they'd be right about the fat part, but I wouldn't want to necessarily respond in the same way. And sometimes I see that. I see Christians sort of responding angrily, and that's not good. So when you come to the sidewalk, come prepared with some literature. This is pretty much what I hand to people, and you guys can get one of these as you leave. It's helpful for a lot of different reasons to just have something for them. So when cars pull into the parking lot, you can just walk over to where and really on Grove Street, you're standing on Grove Street sidewalk, and I get as close as I can to them. They pull in, and they're about between, I would say, the sidewalk to, it's further than the end of this building, but it's a good probably 7,500 feet to where they have to walk past. So you kind of have to shout a little bit, and there is a loud road next to it. Grove is quiet, but the 41 or Tamiami is loud. And so I basically say, hey, I've got some information for you. And I'm smiling, and hey, good morning, I've got information for you. We're here to help you. Open stance. Here, this is for you. I'm not, what are you doing? Murderer. Not that. I've seen a lot of different types of different styles. Just come on over. I got something for you. Come on over. How are you today? Oh, I know. Yeah, this is hard. This is a hard day for you. I know. Come on, let me help you. Whatever your style is. You're smiling. You're happy. About half of the people will look at you and at least acknowledge that you're there. Not fewer will actually come towards you. Okay, some will. And this is what I say to people, number 5, when they start walking towards, you reach out your hand, they may understand what you're doing. About 1/5 of the women, about 20% will take the information. So if they're coming over to you, that's when you're really friendly, you're really nice, find your zone of what what you're comfortable saying. When they, I'm kind of going to skip around here, but it's all on there if you want to check it out later. But so, good morning. I've got information for you. They ignore me. They walk in. While they're walking in, I say, we're here to help you. We don't want you to live with regret. We don't want you to live in shame. We're here to help you. Please let us talk to you. This is not the place for you today. Most of the time, they'll walk right in. Okay. Now, in Sarasota, I can say that part, and if there's someone at the other side, they can say the exact same thing, and they're closer. So they have the same thing. So I've got this, they've got that. And then before they walk into the clinic, they might go over to the other person, and then they say the same thing and have a conversation. Okay? So you're open, happy, you're not angry. I'm not wearing a sign that says murderer. I'm not wearing a sign that says pro-life. I'm just have a shirt on, nothing on it, Sometimes I wear my Red Sox hat. That's about it. Well, that's not it. I wear clothes too, but that would be another. Yeah. Why is no one coming over to talk to me? So I am fully clothed and wearing a Red Sox hat and with a smiling face offering help. Now, if they start to come over to me, which does happen, not all the time, but it does happen. And here's the thing. If you do this with me and you try this and the first few people don't talk to you, it's not you. That's the main thing I have to tell really sweet people, really sweet, godly Christians. It's not you they're rejecting. They're not it's not, you can be the sweetest, nicest person in the world and they can cuss you out, they can scream at you, they can yell at you. You can have the sweetest approach and they'll scream, yell at you because it's not you. It's a spiritual battle. They're mad at the truth. They're mad at themselves. They're mad at their boyfriend. They're mad at their parent. They're mad at God. They're not mad at you. So if you're the sweet, godly Christian who wants to help people and you say the spiel that I taught you and they tell you to go whatever, don't be like, oh, I messed up. I did it wrong. Maybe I should have tried it this way. I mean, maybe, but probably not. It's not you. So they come over to take the information. This is 7. I try to say to them, if the guy is there or whatever, how far, or if they're not there, how far along do you think you are? Oh, you're here for an appointment? How far along are you? I'm about 7 weeks, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Oh, man, did you know your baby has a heartbeat at 19 days? Your baby's heart's beating right now. And your baby's heart right now is beating. And did you know that baby has fingernails? That baby has a DNA structure separate from yours? It's a human being. Wow. I'll never forget when I first saw my oldest daughter's ultrasound. She looked like this. Her little heart was beating. She was about that big. I have 3 daughters. I'm talking about my daughter, person, daughter, child, help. It's a person. She's a human being. He's a human being. How can, help, whatever. What's your situation? Most of the situations I hear, and this was new to me when I first started. I was not aware of this. Most situations that I hear are not financial desperation. I got kicked out of my house. I'm homeless. Most of them are just straight up convenience. Sadly, most of them are just straight up, I don't want to have a baby right now. I've talked to a handful of women who were homeless or whose boyfriend, people living in hotels, boyfriend on drugs, whatever. But very few. Most of the time it's just, I don't want to have a baby, and this is what in my culture, in my world, this is what you do when you don't want a baby. So I talk about the humanity of the baby. I talk about what they need. Do you need a place to stay? Do you need a job? Do you need whatever it is you need? Excuse me. Most of the time it's sort of like dealing with people who are suicidal. When you're dealing with someone who's suicidal and you ask, the more questions you ask about what they are planning on doing, you get a better idea of how serious they are, right? So if someone says to you, if someone's depressed and they say, I just think I'm going to kill myself, and you say, how would you do that? And they go, oh, I don't know. I just feel so bad. I just hate everything. I just hate it. Well, they're not really thinking about it. But if they say to you, well, here's how, and they give you like the detailed list, that's pretty serious. Most women in this, to move the analogy here, most women in this situation just want the pregnancy to be done. They just want the problem solved. They're not really thinking like, I'm going to kill a person today. They're not really thinking this is going to affect they're like, I want this taken care of. I want to be done with this. Not realizing the long-term effects physically, the long-term effects spiritually, that women never get over abortion, ever. Men never do either. The fact that this is a major, major issue with depression and with all kinds of issues in the church and outside the church with post-abortive women. That's a major ministry that needs to be mentioned, is post-abortive ministries. So we want to help these women before they make this choice, before they go in there. And if it means talking about the humanity of the baby, if it means talking about options, mean, people talk about, I get a lot of questions about adoption. Well, what if you said to them, I'll adopt your baby? Well, that's fine, you can say that, and I think there are stories of that happening. But the idea is you have a person who is wanting the pregnancy to be done today. Like they're there at 9 o'clock, they want to be done by 10. They don't want to think about 8 months later. They don't want to think about carrying a baby to term, even though we are all, my wife and I included, are welcoming, ready to adopt and ready to have whoever the Lord brings to our family. But you're talking to people about their problem right now, what they need, what they need to be able to do, and that's the important part. You're doing it in a gracious way. So, page 7. So we talk about what to say and how to say it. You're gracious, you're kind, you're remembering that your worst days of your life have been covered by the blood of Christ. I'm glad for that. Our worst days have been covered by the blood of Christ and God's grace. And you're meeting someone on their worst day too. So page 7, what not to say, why you should never say it. Well, I'm praying for you. Now this might seem weird since we're Christians, but it can sound strange to our culture because they might hear that as, I'm praying for you to have the strength to do this, to follow through and to have an abortion. Because many people think they're Christians in our culture. Many people in the African American community think they're Christians because they go to church. That's true of all communities. Many people will say, my dad's a pastor. I know the verses. So if I say I'm praying for you, I don't want them to think that's approval of what I'm doing, what they're doing, sorry. They might misread it. So I always say, if I'm going to say that, I'm going to say, I'm praying for you not to do this. We're praying that you come out of there. We're praying that you leave. Number 2, you horrible, wretched sinner, how dare you kill your baby? Now, this much should be obvious, but it's not as obvious as you think. I was in Mississippi about 10 years ago, and I actually was doing pro-life ministry, and they only have one facility left in Mississippi. It's in Jackson, and that clinic is surrounded all the time with godly people wanting to close it down. And while I was there, I heard people literally say this, like literally to the people as they were going into the clinic. I'm thinking, whoa. I mean, it just took me, it really surprised me. Because everybody in Mississippi is super nice. Like, it's the hospitality state. Everybody's very nice. And so I'm having this nice conversation with these people, and then as soon as a car goes in, they're like screaming at them. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So our job is not to condemn, but to love. God sent his Son into the world, not to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Another big one that happens at the clinic is people who have different theological views can get at each other sometimes. So why is your church all screwed up? Do you really believe that? Paul Presbyterian to Robert Roman Catholic. These are fictional people, by the way. Why is your church all screwed up? Do you really believe that? So the Sidewalk is not the place for doctrinal debates. There are reasons why I'm where I am theologically, that I'm in basically a conservative Reformed Baptist church now. There are reasons why the Roman Catholics are where they are. Those are important debates. I'm not saying that the Reformation didn't need to happen or anything like that. I'm saying while we're on the sidewalk trying to help women not abort their children, we should probably save that for later and agree on the essentials, which are the babies need to live. So I just the other day, actually, this happened in St. Pete. I had a lady come up and she said to me, "Well, I'm not coming anymore because I just can't stand the way those people pray." I said, "Well, okay. I mean, I'm learning how to say okay." Pastors say that a lot. When pastors say okay, sometimes they're not thinking okay, but they're okay. That's fine. I had a guy come up to me and say, it goes both ways. I'll offend both sides. So I had a Baptist group come up or a Baptist gentleman come up and talk to me how much he couldn't stand Roman Catholics, that they extorted his grandma out of money and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, can we talk about, that's fascinating. We're going to pray to end abortion. And then the Catholics can come over and say, that one guy was telling me about the rosary and how because I told him I was Protestant. He's like, well, the rosaries, Protestants can pray the rosary. And I'm thinking, not really. But but thank you, Mike. And it's like, this one means this, and this is from this verse. And so point is, the Baptists or the non-Catholics can try to evangelize the Catholics, and the Catholics can try to evangelize the non-Catholics. Wonderful. Do it at Cracker Barrel. Don't do it at the clinic. So there you go. Okay. So after they're in the clinic, our mission continues. We are not allowed inside the clinic, although I do have to tell this quick story. This is one of the weirder things I've seen. So a few years ago, we were praying in St. Pete, and this woman came up. The more I talk about this, the more I'm like, was this a dream? Because it's so strange. You see strange things. Spiritual warfare, like, turned up to 10. So this lady walks up to the facility, and she says, they kill babies at this place. I said, yes, they do. And she said, why are you standing here? Why aren't you going inside to the facility? And I said, well, they'll arrest you. It's trespassing, and I don't want to do that. I want to be peaceful and not break any laws. She said, well, I'm going inside, and I'm going to tell them that what they're doing is wrong and evil. I said, okay, they'll come and arrest you. But if that's what, I believe God's still moving, and he's not retired. If that's what God said to you, go for it. But, I'm not going to bail you out, but go for it, And so she did. She went inside the clinic. I think there was a full waiting room, and she, spoke to everybody and said it was wrong and evil, and they called the police. And the police came, and they just gave her a warning. It was the weirdest thing. They didn't arrest her. They didn't trespass her. And never saw her again. Strangest thing ever. 2012, 2013. And I think I went home and told Rebecca that story, and she said, you don't get to do that. Please don't think you can do that. I said, okay. So anyway, you're not allowed to go in the clinic. You're not allowed to go on their property. Most facilities are sort of trained to, when they see new people, they try to scare them away with threats about police. So if you come with me some Friday or Wednesday, they're used to seeing me, but if they see you, they might be like, you can't stand there, sir. We'll call the police on you. You're trespassing. And you just politely say, no, I'm not. You go ahead. And, we know our rights. We know where we can stand and everything. But just be aware of that. So we keep praying while they're inside the clinic. So when all the women show up, we reach out. We try to give them the information. We try to have conversations with them. We try to connect them to pregnancy centers. We try to do whatever we can. Once they're inside the clinic, we still have a job to do, and that is to pray. We must keep praying while they are inside. There are times that women or men will return to their cars to get a checkbook or to retrieve something or do whatever. These are times to try to make conversation with them, listen to the Lord. Sometimes the angry people are the ones who at least you see a response from them. The angry person will respond to you because of the conviction that's happening already. They're convicted. They're mad. They don't want to be there. If they lash out at me, I'm not necessarily going to stop talking. I might, but I'm thinking, what could I say next? So now if they're like, stop talking to me or I will whatever, and sometimes you do get threats, and that's when you go through and legally you call the police if you're really threatened or feeling severely endangered. And that does happen sometimes. But if people come out again and they haven't said much, they go in, they come out, say, hey, I know this is a hard day for you. You don't even have to talk to me. Just please take this. Please take this information. Sometimes I'll come over, and if I say you don't have to talk to me, and they come over, then I don't say much. I just give it to them. So the Lord will guide and direct what your steps are. You must keep praying. So page 8, and then we'll watch a brief video. So how do we know we did our job? Now this is a hard one for Christians nowadays, because people in the church a lot of times want to hear about numbers, and there's nothing wrong with numbers, but we want to make sure that we're doing this in the right way. So it's sort of like if I go out and hand out gospel tracts, or I sometimes do some street preaching in St. Pete. And if I go out and I do street preaching in St. Pete, and I come in and someone says, well, how many people got saved? Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that a lot of people heard. So did I do my job or not? Well, I would say I did my job. And some would say you didn't do your job unless you know exactly, who. So, but here's how sidewalk counselors do their job. We do our job if we offer help to the women in a gracious way. If I say, I've got information for you, I'm here to help you, I just offered help to that person. I just offered help to them in a gracious way. It's not our job to go on the property, tackle them, drag them to the car, and bring them to my house. Can't do that. That's trespassing and kidnapping. So my job is to offer help. Second, we do our job if we pray and ask God to convict them and lead them out of the abortion facility, especially if we're there, if we're on site and we're a praying presence. It is not our fault if they ignore us and kill their baby. It is not. We must not blame ourselves. This is a spiritual battle that has been waged for a very long time in the lives of the women that you are, talking to. You're dealing with a person who has made and is making bad decisions. It's like when you talk to a homeless person, you talk to the layers. When you walk through someone's story with homelessness or whatever, you're seeing the layers of decisions they've made that have not been good decisions. And it's similar here. So don't beat yourself up. I was just at the facility. There's a lady that's been coming with us, and she just can't handle it when they go in and don't talk to her. And I'm just like, I get it. I understand. It's hard, but you did your job. It's a hard thing, but you did your job. Oh, if I only would have said this, it would have changed your mind. I'm like, probably not. I mean, and you can't think that way. Sometimes a woman will leave the clinic without speaking to us. Sometimes women will leave the clinic and tell us they changed their minds. Sometimes women will not go into the parking lot because we're standing there. We don't know all the details of our witness. And real quick, before I do the video, it's in my most recent newsletter, but this was probably in May or June. We were at the facility in St. Pete, and this car pulls up, and it stayed in the middle of the driveway. So we were like, what? Because normally they just go in or whatever. Sometimes they'll turn around. Car pulls in, window rolls down, and this guy, there's like kids in the car, and this guy says, hey, do you remember us? And my friend, Mr. Williams, is a great guy. Hope you guys meet him one day. He said, no, I don't remember you. And I was like, Mr. Williams, you're supposed to always say yes. But anyway, so he's like, no, who are you? And they're like, we were here a year and a half ago. And you guys were here, and we went in, but my daughter came out, and see that baby in the back? That's the baby that you guys helped to rescue. So thank you for what you're doing. And then they pulled up, and I was just able to get a picture before they took off. So we didn't know who they were. We don't know how many people go by and say, I'm not, pray and say, if I see anyone outside, I'm not going in. And we see that. We see people pull in. We try to talk to them. They stay in their car for 30 minutes and leave. Because you can just tell they're not wanting to do it. And so the other thing too with COVID, one of the blessings of COVID is that people in Sarasota, they make them stay in their car longer. They don't let them congregate in the room. So they're able to hear us more. They'll sit in their car, they'll be on their phone, they hear us, they might open whatever. there's more access to them hearing. So let's do the video, and then I'll talk about the locations and take time for questions if you have any. So this is a story of an actual save, the first save I was ever part of.
The alarm yelled me awake at 6:30 Saturday morning. And just like every other Saturday, I didn't want to go. So I stared at the ceiling for a few minutes before putting my feet on the floor. I trudged to the refrigerator, grabbed my Diet Coke, got in the shower, got dressed, and then got in the car. I could tell this was going to be one of those Florida winter days with all the promise of autumn, but none of the fulfillment. I prayed along the way. Lord, I'm tired. You know that I sense you calling me to this. Please just use me. Thank you, Jesus. I had no cards, no information or pamphlets this time. They can sometimes help, I remember someone telling me. They can make the conversations go more smoothly. But I was already halfway there, and if I had gone back to the house, the temptation to stay home would have been overwhelming. Pamphlets or no pamphlets, today my heart wasn't in it. The city was quiet at this early hour, save the occasional din of a semi-truck headed for the interstate. I parked along the street, walked past the bus stop, along the sidewalk. I stood where I always do, in a place easily marked by a sad palm tree. The tree sits almost flattened, as if testifying to something seriously wrong. Several cars entered the parking lot, and I tried to engage the people in conversation. Good morning. You guys have a minute to chat? Nobody did. The little old ladies behind me read and prayed and quoted scripture. They come every Saturday, but are silent when it comes to mortals. They leave earthly conversations to me. Several more people went inside. Nobody came over to talk. Some pointed and laughed, and others just furtively went inside. Just another day at the abortion clinic. One couple walked in, and the boyfriend seemed pensive. I called out to him across the row of shrubs, and he shouted something back in my direction, but with the noise of the traffic, we couldn't hear each other. But after a few minutes, something amazing happened. He had come out to his car, I guess to get his wallet or something. When I asked him to come over and talk to me on the sidewalk for a minute, he did. Stunned, I began praying. He told me that I had no right to judge him and his girlfriend because I didn't know them. I said, "You're right." But now a baby is involved, made in the image of God, and that changes everything. He told me his girlfriend was poor and she couldn't afford a baby. I told him there were dozens of groups that would be willing to help them adopt and pay for everything. He told me it was her choice. Her choice. I told him that, yes, it was. But that she could still choose to do the right thing because her conscience would never let her live down what she was planning to choose. Would you please let me talk to her? Please, I pleaded. Then something else amazing happened. An angry young woman stood before me, almost certainly grasping for words. I told this young mother that God was the author of life and that her situation may seem impossible right now, but that God could use it for good. I told her that there were people who cared about her and her baby, and just wanted to help. She still seemed callous as she walked back inside. There was silence again. I turned my back and gazed at the bent palm tree keeping its desperate vigil. I prayed silently with my hands outstretched to the heavens, feeling just as mangled. But the young couple came outside. They were hurriedly getting into their car and leaving. I motioned to the young man, who rolled down his window and said, "You got one today, man. You got one. We're leaving." A baby was saved. The little old ladies behind me came up and asked me what he had said. And I told them. We rejoiced. What an amazing God. What amazing mercy. A cool breeze stayed a little longer, and the tree looked just a little straighter. And I can't wait to set my alarm next Friday night.
For you.